Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman Driving Change panel. Super excited to have two powerhouse women leading industries, trailblazers in their industries on the panel today. Welcoming Koleya Karringten, who's the CEO of Absolute Combustion International, and also Jaime Leverton, who is the CEO of Hut 8 Mining. And so ladies, welcome. We're going to dive right in. Koleya, I'm just going to have you jump in and share with our guests a little bit about you and your company.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. It's great to be here. Again, yes, my name is Koleya Karringten, CEO of Absolute Combustion. So what we do is we design environmentally friendly clean tech combustion products for the energy industry, for the aviation, as well as the construction industry. I'm also the executive director for the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. We are a not-for-profit industry organization that really focuses heavily on education and advocacy for this incredible technology. I also sit on the board and co-founded the Canadian Blockchain Association for Women, where we do fundraising to do bursary programs so we can help women get job retraining into more technical careers in STEM. I also sit as vice chair of the board for a group called Elevate Aviation, where on top of doing bursary programs to help women get into more technical fields into the aviation space, we also do mentorship programs, and I teach young girls in high school about combustion aviation at their learning center. And then I also just recently joined the board of Alberta Women's Entrepreneurs. On top of that, I guess I'm a single mom. I have two beautiful boys, a puppy, and on my downtime, a little known fact about me is I really enjoy hunting and riding my motorcycle.
Super cool. It's great. What a wonderful intro. I couldn't do that justice. And I love the package. I love the personal and professional introduction there, Koleya. Really driving change on all areas. Thank you so much. We're glad to have you. Jaime, welcome. And I'll have you just share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I'm Jaime Leverton. I am the CEO of Hut 8 Mining. Hut 8 is one of North America's largest publicly traded digital asset mining companies. You can see our Medicine Hat site there in the background behind me. So we really focus on the mining of Bitcoin as well as Ethereum. There's a hosting side to our business. We have the largest amount of self-mined Bitcoin on our balance sheet of any public company in the world, and we're a great Canadian tech story. So super proud to be leading this organization. I've spent the last 20 plus years, not to give my full age away, in the technology space in Canada. Super passionate about bringing more women into STEM fields. Very I feel honored to be part of this community, which has been so supportive to me over my career. I sit on the board of the Stratford Festival as well as Tech Nation. I also help out iMasons in their diversity and inclusion initiatives. I have two daughters, ages 11 and 13, so I'm the annoying mom that talks about STEM all the time at home with my kids. And then I also have a dog. No cats in the house yet. And I happily live in Toronto in the beach area, but I'm from just outside of Belleville, Ontario. And that's me.
Fantastic. Well, we are super happy to have you, Jaime, and I love the visual behind you. That really is interesting, and I'll have you maybe share a little bit about more of that for those of our listeners who don't know much about that industry, like myself. I'm still learning. So we're going to jump right in, ladies. And I think, one of the things that we can really all relate to is that when the world stopped, women kept going. Women from around the world were deeply impacted. And as we emerge from the pandemic, it's a collective voices of all the women represented in all the diverse industries that are really going to drive the change in our networks, in our communities, in our workplaces. So where I'd like to start the conversation off with is we talk about that brick ceiling, actually glass ceiling. I like to say it's a brick ceiling, but we've come far, but not far enough, Koleya. So how are you going to be driving that change, or how do you see that you can drive change in your industry underrepresented by women?
Oh, thank you. That's Big question. For me, I think like with what you're doing with the Universal Women's Network and being able to like highlight really incredible women like Jamie and so many of the other ones that you have on there, it's like being able to actually show young girls that it's like you can do it too, right? So being in that spotlight, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, showing them that like, yes, I am in the STEM field. It's like you can be there too. Growing up, I had a lot of really incredible supporters, a lot of really amazing men who did a lot of mentorship from me, starting off with my dad, and I've been mentored since I was very young. And I think the thing that helped me feel the most confident when I kind of hit my 20s and I started my own company was actually seeing a woman who was an engineer and a CEO of her own oil and gas company stand up and speak about and not war, right? And it was just that moment of, okay, yes, you did it. That means I could. So the reason I love being a part of the groups I'm in right now, especially like with Elevate Aviation, having like high school girls come through my shop in Edmonton and being able to show them my combustion system and then talking about how combustion relates to aviation. It's like I see these little girls' eyes like light up. Like one girl looked at me and she's like, "Oh, you're like a female Elon Musk." And I was like, "Well, I'm not that smart, but thank you." Like it was like, you could be too, right? So you get them like inspired like that. And then you like, I love going into the universities and I do a lot of like guest lecturing and mentoring there. And it's just like helping them feel like they can be it too, I think is the biggest one for me on how I currently do it, based on what supported me to start elevating my kind of engagement in the tech sector.
Beautiful. And I love that circle of reciprocity, right? It's sharing of knowledge. And I think that's one thing very consistent with all of the leaders that we have in our community is that everybody really is able to not just keep the knowledge, but share the knowledge. And that's such an important aspect to really be able to educate the youth and peers that are interested in transitioning. So thank you so much, Koleya. Jamie, how about yourself and the industry that you're in? How do you see driving that change?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with the comments around showing that it's possible and being a role model, putting yourself out there. I know a lot of us work with young women that are exploring the field or just starting careers in the field, because what we see a lot of is even women that choose to start a career in STEM often churn out mid-career, and a lot of that has to do with them not seeing themselves at the next level, not kind of connecting to the people that are often at the top of technology organizations where women are still so underrepresented in the C-suite. So I think it's great that we do have a community of women in tech in Canada that works really hard to put their hand out. And I think that's something that we need to continue to do more of. The other thing I think is education. We need to get into schools very, very early on and demonstrate tech as a potential career path. I think young women and girls can often kind of get scared of it, not understand it, not see themselves there again. So I think it's so important that we introduce these fields early. And I mean, at the end of the day, Starbucks considers themselves a tech company. Like everything is a tech company. And I'm really worried about where we're at with coming out of the pandemic. The pandemic took a lot of women out of the workforce disproportionately versus men, and it's driven us quite a ways back from where we had gotten to statistically coming into the pandemic. So I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to work even harder and really, really put focus and attention on getting that next generation involved. And from my experience, each time I go into a new leadership role at a new company, it naturally starts to shift the diversity associated with that company. I think people tend to hire or seek out people that look like them and naturally bring diversity. So Hadate's a great example. We have 50% of our leadership team are women. Our board is 40% women. That was not the case prior to my arrival. So I think it just goes to show that the more diverse an organization, diversity begets more diversity. And so I think it's so important that we have the representation at the levels that we need to continue to grow that pipeline. And ultimately, diverse organizations have better ROI. They take less risk and they deliver better results.
Beautiful. And I love the leading by example piece, which is so, so critical. Now, I just want to kind of go back to, and I'm going to start with you, Koleya, is, what was that pivotal moment when you decided that I'm going to take that leap and I'm going to go down this road and focus on, building your business, starting your business? You were 20 years old, right? Like, what was that moment for you that you decided, I'm just going to pivot, I'm going to start this business and go for it?
So when I was 20, I found that I was going to be a young mom, and kind of had that moment of, well, now what? And my father had actually been such an integral part of my life at that point in terms of like mentorship and teaching me all about business since I was really young. And when I let him know the information, he kind of had this bit of a crisis, like the next generation. Al Gore had just been coming out discussing like climate change and, the polar ice caps and, how we need to be so conscientious of our environment. And because that next generation was about to be born, we're like, okay, so we sat down and kind of mapped it out. We're like, we need to start something that it has to be a technology-based company, but the technology has to benefit the environment. And if it benefits the environment, that means it'll benefit, the next generation that lives on it. Like, how do we leave a better world than what we came in with was a big part of it. And, just kind of knowing that it's like I had this responsibility, but feeling like that responsibility was like so much greater. It's like, I want my child to be able to play in a playground that isn't a reclaimed landfill. I want him to be able to grow up and be able to breathe clean air. And it's, I get to do it wearing a mask. So my analogy on that, but not needing it for clean air, so to speak, right? But also being able to see like the oceans and aquatic life, and just knowing that, the world's going to move on, and then his children have a good world to go into. So that was kind of like that big part of it. And then why we picked combustion specifically was we were, strangely enough, in Calgary, we have this mall called Market Mall, and in front of Lululemon, they were talking about all the emissions that were coming specifically out of the oil and gas industry. And I realized, like, I love our energy industry. I think it's absolutely vital and critical. I do not see us moving away from energy in the next, 20, 50, 100 years. But I do believe that there are ways for us to efficiently and environmentally friendly use these resources. So it wasn't to try and push away from energy. We designed a combustion system that actually reduces the emissions by almost 70%. So you can still use the technology, but now you're leaving less of a footprint, because 86% of our emissions in the energy sector come from combustion. Only 14% come from actually transporting it down a pipeline. So we want to kind of make the biggest impact, in the area that, of course, we love. Everything we do requires it. So that's kind of what got me started into it. It's been a journey ever since.
And such an inspiring journey. I remember having a conversation with you, about the journey, about that education and that piece of your learning, how you were, business books with your father, and in those business conversations since I think you were 3 years old, so by the time you're 20, you just had to figure out what it is that you wanted to do to apply yourself. And I think that's really interesting and encouraging for women, because age doesn't define what you're doing. Right? I think the clear path and to surround yourself with leaders is really important. So Jaime, let's go to you now. What was your defining moment? Why did you choose to go down the path that you went down when you first started your career? Because it's been a huge career for you so far.
Yeah, a series of happy accidents and broad just ignorance to how the world worked is how I got here, frankly. So I mentioned I'm from Belleville, and I finished high school early. I was always in a rush to get going and to kind of start my adult life. And so I went to the University of Ottawa. I didn't even know to declare a major, and so they put me into political science, and then I added psychology. And at the end of my undergraduate degree, I really didn't have a functional skill set. I had only ever been a bartender and a waitress. So I actually went to the guidance office at the University of Ottawa and they put me through a whole bunch of interest and aptitude testing, and ultimately said, here are the top 10 careers that you would be successful and happy doing, and they were basically all business, which had, again, never occurred to me. And I was really lucky that I grew up with a father who's an engineer and was really into computers. So I'd always had computers in the house, and I grew up like coding on the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64. So when this kind of business idea came out through the guidance office, Dalhousie University actually offered an MBA program that had a concentration in marketing informatics. So I thought, wouldn't that be fun if I've got to go learn business, which seemed boring to me at the time, that I could do a little bit of like computers with it. It was kind of the early days of business intelligence, and we were actually doing data mining using SAS Enterprise Miner. So it was just, for me, a really, really fun way to kind of do my MBA, and I did some student-run consulting when I was there. And ultimately, IBM recruited from that program because it was, again, such a unique combination of business and IT. And so that's how I got to Toronto. That's how I started a career in tech. And then it really just progressed from there. It was about 10 years in that I started to specialize in transformation work, and absolutely fell in love and kind of found my passion. And that's what I've been focused on mostly for the second half of my career. But very, very broadly supported by mentors and sponsors along the way that I'm so grateful for. And part of how I got here was all of the people that helped along the way, and I've worked really hard to try to pay that back and pay it forward. But that's really how I got here. It was I didn't set out to build a career in tech. It happened, and it really all started because I had that technology in the home, and I developed a love for it.
So there's something really interesting, though. It's like women are seen, heard, and valued. Super important. You both are sharing your stories in your career paths, which is super inspiring, I think, for anybody listening. But what do you think about, why do you think more women don't go down a certain path? There's a C word, the confidence word, and asking for what you want. So have you ever had instances, Koleya, where, that was a barrier for you? Or have you always been able to ask for what you want?
I wish. Oh my God. If I could have asked for what I wanted at a young age, I'd be in a very different place than I am today. No. Honestly, starting off in this, like, working with my dad was one thing, but being a woman, and then like I have a high school education, and like I also did the waitressing and all that. I was in the food service industry, or like the natural health industry, more like female kind of orientated industries. No technical background whatsoever. So I remember like I'd walk into meetings and men would be like, "Oh, 2 creams and a sugar," and you're like, I'm not supposed to be here. And you feel like, oh, I'm not an engineer. I'm not smart enough. I'm a woman. And then like, if you're like a minority on top of it, you're like, it's like all these kind of things just create this level of like insecurity. And honestly, like the first time I even kind of stepped out of my shell, I went to this like women in leadership networking group because my assistant at the time was like, you need to put yourself out there. And I was like, I don't belong here. All these women are like executives and stuff, and they're probably all smart, and they probably all have masters, and like, I shouldn't be here. But it was that moment where I saw Suzanne West saying like, and not or, and yes, you can. And I was nervous as heck, but I asked a question. I was like, how do you like be a woman in business and still be feminine? Because, and it's like, I wore pantsuits. Oh, you're a ball buster, right? And it's like, you just get all of these like negative contexts to you. And it was difficult. So the thing that actually helped me to continue going and like actually stay on my path and not pick something completely different was I worked every single week with a woman named Suze Casey, who does something called belief repatterning. And she would help me take my negative self-talk and turn into something like positive affirmations. So it's like, I am competent, I am capable, I am deserving, I should be at this table, I can do it. And instead of all of that constant negative feedback loop that I would give myself, I was able to shift it into like positivity and like, okay, I'm learning. I am capable of learning. I will learn more. I'll continue. Like I will get better, like failing forward and all of that kind of stuff. So I think the biggest reason why women don't do it is we all have insecurities, every single one of us. We don't like something about ourselves, our body, our emotions, our life, whatever it is. You don't feel smart enough. But it's like just being willing and telling yourself, I give myself the permission to try, right? Just like putting it out there. It's like you do not, like, what did Arlene Dickinson say? May we all have the confidence of a middle-aged white man. Like, may we all, because they will put themselves out there. If they have like 4 out of 10 boxes, they're like, I'm going for that job. And I'm going to ask for a raise within 3 months. Right? But like as women, we're like, oh my God, I don't have all 10 boxes to check. They're never going to pick me. I'm not competent enough. And I know I've totally done that. I was like, God, I'd love to apply for this board position, but like they want da 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 da. And it's like, I got like most of this, but like not quite that. So I guess I won't. And it's like, wait a second. I'll try anyway. And like, if I don't get it, I don't get it. But at least like, if you're willing to try, you just never know. Like the greatest waste of an opportunity is to just not try.
Very well said. I couldn't agree more. And Jamie, I know you're dying to jump in, so I'd love to, and you know, it kind of went into this whole imposter syndrome question, right? And so maybe Jamie, I'll get you number one. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if you have,
every day.
How have you gotten over it?
I'm not over it.
I'm in therapy.
I don't think you ever fully get over it. I think you like there are always elements of self-doubt, and I don't think that men are immune to it either. I think they maybe just process in different ways. But one of the most valuable lessons I learned in my career actually came from a female executive when I was leaving an organization to go to another one, and it was a high-risk situation. And she said, what's the worst that can happen? And once you like really unpack what's the worst that can happen, that is an incredibly empowering moment, because if you can recognize that the worst that can happen, if you're competent and you've done good work and you leave on good terms, the worst that can generally happen is you just go back to that organization, do that again, or you end up taking a similar role, but you've failed forward, you've learned something, you've actually become more valuable to whatever entity you go to next. You don't have to succeed at everything. Like sometimes the biggest learnings and the biggest step changes in a career or in a life come from the failures. And I think that's super important to recognize and make a peace with, frankly.
Beautiful. And I love how you're both leading companies, but you're okay and you have the confidence to say, yeah, I've failed, I've succeeded, and the road hasn't been smooth. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that we need to talk more about. It's important to celebrate successes, and that's my next question. Why is it so important to celebrate and recognize the achievements of women, Koleya?
Well, honestly, I feel like it's incredibly important to normalize the successes and achievements of women. You know, like I truly yearn for the day where it's no longer first Black female CEO of Walgreens. It's just like, what does either one of the Black or the female have to do with it? It's just like, look at this next competent leader. Congratulations. She was the best of her peers. She didn't win this award because she had ovaries and breasts. She did it because she is the best in her field. So it's like, I think it's important to get to a point where we acknowledge it to the point of normalcy, right? It's not just like, it's an all women panel. It's like a panel of experts, right? I don't know if I'm saying it properly, but like, I think it's so important because the more that young girls and young boys in this generation see, you know, women as equals, women as peers, women in leadership positions, the more girls see, you know, mentors as women in leadership positions, the more they can acknowledge and go, okay, we can all do it. Like Kamala Harris being the first female vice president of the United States of America, that was a moment. It was like, all right, see, women were you know, chipping away at our brick ceiling slowly, right? But we're getting to the point where one day we won't say it's a woman anymore, right? One day we won't have to be that specific. But until then, you know, the more that we can highlight and showcase and shine a light on the fact that there are incredible women all at the same time trying to chip away that little brick ceiling, eventually, you know, the brick will become glass and eventually it will completely shatter. And then we'll be able to, you know, be completely on par with, you know, wages and positions, and we won't be like the minority in the workforce anymore.
Beautiful. And how about yourself, Jamie? Why is it so important to recognize the achievements of women?
I really do think that shining the spotlight for the next generation to be able to have kind of choice in where they see themselves and who they connect with. I think Koleya touched on it earlier, the role that vulnerability plays, and for us as female leaders, being comfortable saying, yes, I'm a mom and a wife and an executive, but I also have friends and a social life, and guess what? Like, I don't bake for the school bake sale. Like, that's something I've made my peace with. Like, I don't make time for that. I don't. There are a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff I just don't do. Like, I don't pretend that I do it all, because I don't. And I don't think it's a healthy image to portray to the next generation, that they have to do everything. I think you pick and choose what you're good at, and you figure out how to cover the rest. And everybody has different strategies on how they do that. And I'm very, very open with the women that I talk to about what my strategies are and where I've made those choices and sacrifices. And it's not for everybody. It's just one woman, girl's path. And I think it's really, really encouraging for women to understand that they don't have to be superwoman, and that we're not all superwomen. Like, we're not. We make mistakes, we make choices, we make sacrifices, but we have success, and let's celebrate the success. But let's not pretend that that they came easily, or they're not without hard choices.
And a few sacrifices, I have to add. You know, I don't think we talk enough about the sacrifices that really, truly, when you're on PAP, that you don't have it all. We can't have it all, right? Not at the same time anyways, right? There's some definite playoffs. Koleya, I'd love to hear your comments on that, about having it all. You know, as a CEO of a business, you're on boards, you're a single mom, you know, and you've got lots going on your plate. So do you think that women can have it all?
I think women can have as much as they want to have. But I think that at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you. Like, at no point is the road of entrepreneurship easy. I have had many a moment crying on the side of the highway, bawling my ass off to my therapist. Well, she's like, all right, honey, like, time to put your big girl pants on. You got to drive down that road. And it's like, it's overwhelming and hard, you know? It's just like, you're going to have those moments. Like, for the first couple years of my son's life, I was working so much that it's like, I missed a lot. I didn't get those first words, and I wasn't there for that first step. And, you know, it hurts. And I, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I was. But at the same time, it's like, I love what I do, and I love my family. And again, that piece of like, and not or, it's like, I can be a woman as an executive, and I can be a mom. But does that mean I'm a PTA mom? No. Am I a bake sale mom? No. Like, am I the mom sewing my kid's Halloween costume? At no point, right? But it's just like, thank God for Uber Eats and skip the dishes some nights, because yeah, after like working 12-hour days, no, I do not feel like cooking for you, but I love you, right? Like, there's going to be those things. You're gonna sacrifice, but it's really what's important for you at the end of the day. Like, I know I felt shame as a mom, like taking my oldest to school, and I'd have the other moms that were like stay-at-home moms. And it's like, I was a single mom, so I didn't have a choice to be a stay-at-home mom, but they'd look at you like, you work? I could never stay away from my children for that long. And I'm like, I'm trying to feed them. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't have, you know, a rich husband sitting at home, like telling me like, oh, it's okay, honey, to spend my money. So it's like, you're going to have to like, and even if you do have a man at home, we don't live in a world today where it's really sustainable for two people to not work, right? So that's kind of another balance you have to look at. So it's like, if you want to be in a career, if you want to be, you know, successful, it's like, you are going to have some things that you might have to like determine if you want to sacrifice along the way. But I mean, you can really have as much as you want. I have so much of what I want right now. Could I have more? Yeah, maybe, but I'm finding life balance, attempting anyway.
I think everybody has to define what all means for themselves. All to one person isn't all to another person. So I think putting forward this kind of ideal notion of what your all is and applying that to other people is also not helpful. Like, I think I have it all, but my definition of all is not everybody's definition. So I think it's a really their personal choices, their personal journeys, and I think celebrating women's success is celebrating the choice and the journey as well, and the differences that we all have.
Beautiful. And I do love how success is defined that's so personal, and really truly having it all. I mean, I echo a lot of what you say, Koleya. I'm a single mom, and like I know it, right? You don't have a choice to work, but also I love what I'm doing. So I wouldn't choose not to do it, right? So I think that probably the bigger conversation is just to remain, in an environment where you're rallying and supporting other women, whatever they choose to do, whether they're at home or working or whatever that decision is that there's no judgment. Like, I think we need to get past the judgments. I
can imagine being a stay-at-home mom. Like, they must have the patience of Job. Like, I bow down to them. I couldn't do it. I would be terrible.
I would love my cookies.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we have to celebrate the stay-at-home moms just as much as we celebrate the women that are successful in business. Like, if you're getting your all out of it, we have to celebrate every single person and the choices they've made that have led them to a place where they feel happy with their choices and they feel like they're successful. I'm all about it.
Oh, amen.
Bravo, ladies. Bravo.
Mom thing for a few years, and after I got into a career, like, never looked back. I was like, nope. If I ever have more kids, it's called a nanny. Like, I can't do that.
It's so hard.
It is so hard. It's like, I love adult talk conversation, and you do not get that with a toddler.
So I think what I'd love to do is, we started to talk about it briefly again, and I think this is really important. We talk about driving that change, but I think it's really about the support network that we have around us, and that does include our male allies. And I know you touched on this, Koleya, but I'd love to really talk about how critical it is for men to be allies and support hers. And so maybe I'd love you to jump in and chat about how important it is for men to be champions.
Oh gosh, I don't think I can say enough for how incredible it is to have male mentors. Like, as much as I am truly grateful for all the women who have helped and supported me, but the male mentors and the confidence that they help instill in you, and like the lessons and the education. And I've had the joy of having male mentors, all the way from being able to learn from people like Jay Abrams and George Ross and, Nito Cobain and my dad. And, one of the men who sits on my board, he's, an older gentleman, but has been helping me, supporting me, investing in me, and mentoring me in my ACI business. And I wouldn't continue to even still have it if it wasn't for his nonstop support and like encouragement and belief. And as much as he can be hard on me, he also sends me those little like, by the way, you're doing an amazing job. And you're like, so just like being able to have that, a lot of the relationships I built even in my ACI business, like when I started partnering with the Edmonton Airport, their vice president of operations was like so encouraged and so proud of like, you're keeping this going for your dad, and it's such an amazing legacy. And like, I have a daughter, and I hope that she feels that she can do anything too. And the support I got from the Edmonton Airport, how they invested in our partnership and helped me commercialize this technology and helped expand my business in the aviation space, it all came because like the three men in that organization, between the CEO, Tom, and then the two VPs I worked with, those men were just like, I love what you do. And it wasn't because I was a woman specifically. It's like they love the technology and they're willing to take the time and support and mentor me right now. And it's been really, really incredible. I can't say enough for male mentors. I think that we need to make sure that men feel, more welcome to continue to support and encourage and mentor women and, rise us up to that equality.
Beautiful. Well said. And Jamie, how about yourself? Why is it important for men to be part of that conversation and support hers?
Well, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Men still hold the majority of the power. So if we expect to see change in the world, they have to be part of the solution because they still have the majority of the power. So I think one of the things I struggle with, doing as much speaking as I do, and I'm sure we all do, around getting more women in STEM and doing women's events, the majority of the time that audience is 95% women and you're speaking into an echo chamber. Like, we have to have the men in the room, the men as part of the conversation. They have to be our allies. They have to share the power. And I think all of the women that I know in this industry that have been successful, men have been a huge part of that, and absolutely that's been true for me. So I think we need them in the conversation, and I think we have to do better at bringing them in.
Beautiful. Couldn't agree more, ladies. And, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom and being so authentic in your conversations. I really do think that's how we drive change, is by learning from leaders just like yourself who are willing to share their knowledge. I also want to do a little shout out to the book that you're both in, the Woman of Inspiration, Woman Driving Change. So, I just want to say your stories are awe-inspiring, and there is more than meets the eye, and super excited to have you part of the Universal Women's Network, using your experience and your wisdom to help raise the bar for all women. So thank you so much for joining us. Any last words, Koleya, before we wrap up?
Honestly, Monica, I love the work that you do. I love how you shine a light on as many women as you can find across the entire country. And I love being able to be a part of and support organizations like yours, because I just got to meet Jamie, and I'm like, I've been following you forever, by the way, since you became CEO. And I was like, so by the way, little fangirl crush on you.
Oh my gosh, I'm coming to Edmonton and you're going to teach me about combustion, because I don't know a thing. So you're part of my next trip to Alberta.
Oh my God, please.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Ever want someone for free labor on your GPUs? Let me know. I love getting into them.
You medicine?
I would totally. Fun. I will 1,000% meet you in medicine. Okay. I was super excited when I heard your title. I was like, I've been watching you for a while. So that kind of stuff is really exciting, because just the fact that you're a woman and you're a CEO of a public trade company and it's in Bitcoin. So that kind of stuff, I get to meet my fangirl crushes too. And so I love what you're doing, and thank you. And honestly, it's so amazing to meet you today, Jamie, as well. And I hope that one day I will be able to meet you in Medicine Hat and have
oh my God, we're doing it. We're doing it. This was so fun. I'm so glad I got to meet you. Thank you, Monica.
Well, you are so welcome, and I do see some value into some behind the scenes that's kind of on our radar for 2022, because I'd love to invite more women into the world and to learn about these amazing careers that you've built for yourselves and the opportunities that exist for women, that we're just chipping away on that. So thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us on the Women Driving Change. Thank you to Koleya and to Jamie. Look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Awesome. Bye, ladies. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks again.